It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
This whole show is a tangent.
Cool. That's why I dig it.
Shazam! It's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, Abby Kohut talks about searching for a job. Welcome to the podcast. I'm the aforementioned Craig Price, and if you're starting a job search or have been in one for a while, you may find it a bit daunting and frustrating. You know, the way things are done change, and my guest today is here to help. Literally, her mission since 2010 has been to find jobs for 1 million people. Now, I'm self-employed and have been since 2008, and I have no clue how to find a full-time job. I have a hard enough time finding one-shot deals for the work I already do. But I never really had a problem getting a job before. Even when I moved to New York, Salt Lake City, Houston, every time with few or no connections, I was able to find something to pay the bills while I found the quote-unquote real work. So I didn't have to worry about that because there were job boards and newspaper ads and things like that. And I know many people who are looking for work or looking to trade jobs who are not finding it as easy as it was 5-10 years ago. So I tried to ask Abby questions not just from an unemployed perspective, but from a broader, anyone looking for a job perspective. But before we start, just a quick reminder, if you like the show, and I certainly hope you do, otherwise why are you listening, be sure to head over to iTunes and leave a review. It would really help out. More importantly, while you're there, subscribe to the podcast and never miss an episode. Also, while you're there, why don't you just head over to the iTunes store and download the podcast app. It is absolutely free, and it comes with a lot of added material from many of our past guests. Plus, you don't have to really subscribe. You'll just have episodes show up as they're downloaded, so you have it there every time. Enough plugging. I really don't like doing that, so let's talk about job searches with Abby Kohut. It's been about, I would say, 10 years since I've actively had to look for a job. And even then, it wasn't really an active job search. I probably haven't had to do a job search from scratch for probably about since 2000, 2001. And a lot of things have changed in the last 14 years. When I was looking for a job, it was, you would go to job boards. The internet was still something you could use, but you would also use the paper. You would Craigslist was somewhat new at the time. So how are people finding jobs now compared to 5 years ago?
So it's the same kind of thing. People are looking on the job boards, but it depends on your level. So if you're a manager to director level or VP or C level, you're probably not going to find your job on the board. You're probably going to find it at a networking group or meeting someone who knows someone who knows someone. So what happens is people are going on the job boards and they are looking and they're finding, but they're sending their resume into an abyss, and recruiters aren't seeing them. And so it's not that they're not qualified, it's just that recruiters aren't seeing them. And, I mean, the fact is there are about, I forget if it's 13 million, but it's a lot of millions of jobs open right now. And so it's really important that you keep at it because there are jobs out there. You just have to figure out how to play the game.
And I know from talking to executives, because that's what I do, that there's people that they say that they have jobs open, but they can't find qualified people. And then I know people who are out of work saying they can't find jobs that pay anything. How are people trying to connect to those? Because they're out there. Those jobs exist. It's just a matter of finding them and then showing that you are a match.
That's right. And what we call this is the skills gap. So there are tons of unemployed people and there are tons of open jobs. And it's a matter of trying to match these two together. What's happening is that a lot of companies, they have a specific A through Z job description, and they're being very picky about what they want. And along comes a candidate who's like A through F, and they're not willing to consider those people, and that's why there's so many unemployed people, is because they're just being very picky. The other thing is that there are jobs that are available at like the coordinator level, the manager level, and then someone comes along who's at the director level and they try to get one of those jobs and they're being told they're overqualified. So that's happening with people that are older and more experienced. So that's where the disconnect is. But the most important thing that you should know is that there are jobs available, just like you said. There are jobs available, and you have to just keep plugging away and trying to figure out where they are and being able to explain your value proposition.
And my guest today is absolutely Abby Kohut. You are a corporate recruiter. You've got a book out called Absolutely Abby's 100 Job Search Secrets. A corporate recruiter hands you the keys to the job let me do this again. A corporate recruiter hands you the keys to your job search success. And you're out in an RV right now, traveling the country, trying to get people connected with jobs. And how's it going so far?
It's going real well. I've been doing it for 2 years and 1 month, and today I'm talking to you from Tampa, Florida. And it's fantastic. I'm meeting really terrific people, but it's going fantastically for me, but I wish it wasn't going so unfantastically for them, if that's a word. And this is why I'm doing this, is because so many people are suffering out there. So many people are having difficulties navigating the job market. They think that it's one way, and it's completely the opposite way. So I'm going out there and explaining the absolute truth. That's why I call myself Absolutely Abby.
So what do you find to be the biggest obstacle to just even finding the right job? Because I think that's the hardest part, is finding something that to even submit resumes to or find something that you're qualified for.
Yeah, well, we call this the hidden job market. People complain about the hidden job market. They think that there are these secret jobs out there that no one knows about. And the fact is that there are people that know about the jobs, but it's just people that are outside your network. So if you think there's a hidden job market, it's because you haven't found out about those jobs. It's not that the jobs are hidden. So the most important thing is that you get out and go to more networking groups and meet more people. Talk to everybody. Talk to everybody that you know, especially the people that you know a lot of people. So, for example, there's the hairdresser that you go to. There's the accountant that you go to, the lawyer that you go to, your dentist, your doctor. All of these people, they know lots and lots of people and what their professions are. And if you go to them and you tell them what your situation is and what you're looking for, what types of companies you would like to work for, those people will help you connect to these other people that they know.
So do you think that the executives and the companies aren't really promoting the jobs or the announcements? They're just kind of using that network to find people? And that's the thing? Or are they just waiting until the perfect candidate comes along?
Yeah, they're not really putting up ads as much as they used to. They're just doing a lot of networking, and that's why people think it's a hidden job market. And it's really not. It's just that they don't want to put ads up because ads are expensive, and then when they put up an ad, they get all these unqualified people. So they kind of just ask around, do you know someone? Do you know someone? Do you know someone? And then it trickles down, and eventually someone can think of someone that they worked with, and that's how the position gets filled, especially at the more senior levels.
So let's think of it as I'm a person who doesn't have a job, and I'm looking for a job, and I hear about a job from my networking group. Resumes have changed throughout the years. It used to be, a page and a half, and then got to be where you didn't have a summary. You went with just a skill set, and the formats have changed, and the things have changed so much that if you're out of the job search for more than 2 years, what you submit may make you look bad, even though all your qualifications are right there, just because of the format. Has anything changed drastically in resumes in the last couple of years that people need to be aware of? Are people even still using resumes?
Yeah, definitely they're still using resumes, and it's funny because a lot of people think that things have changed, and the truth is that things really haven't changed a whole lot. Resumes are still resumes, and what people put on them is kind of the same thing. We used to have an objective at the top, and the objective kind of made no sense because it was something like, I want a really great job in a really great company. It didn't really say much. So people stopped using it, and then a few people started to put a summary at the top, and then some people started to add skills at the top. But the fact is that there's no facts about resumes. So there's not a resume police, there's not a resume god, there's no one that's going to come to your house and arrest you if your resume is too short, too long. So you have to figure out what resume makes sense for you, what do you like, what are recruiters telling you that they like, and that's the resume that makes sense for you. I hope that makes sense, but it really hasn't changed a whole lot, believe it or not.
Yeah, I just noticed that they look different because I've seen some resumes come through and they look drastically different in format, not necessarily in content. The content just moved around, and how they present their skill set is a little different. So it's all still the same information. It just looks different. And then,
Yeah, I guess at the top. So what's probably changed when you're seeing differences, it's probably just the top part. And I think that's because people have said you got to get the recruiter to look at the first part of the resume because that's what they're going to look at. So you should put all your important stuff at the top. But it depends on who the recruiter is as to how they read the resume. Because some recruiters start at the top and start reading down, and other recruiters like me, I just go straight to the first job. I don't look at anything at the top. I don't look at the summary, the objectives, the skills. I just go right to the first job to see if it's relevant. And every recruiter is different. Some recruiters go right to your cover letter. So you can't please everybody, which is why you just have to please yourself. You have to like the resume that you have and send that one out.
well, we all know that there was a downturn in 2008 and in 2007, and I've noticed a trend that I've not only seen in the news, but I've actually heard this from hiring folks, is that people are very hesitant to hire people who don't already have jobs, which sounds crazy. That you only want people who are employed, because it sounds like that if you're not employed, there's probably major reasons for it, or you're flawed.
I know, and that's the most unfortunate thing that you're talking about there, but it is true. It seems to be happening out there, and this is why I'm on a little bit of a crusade to fix that, because it's really, I mean, most of these people were not laid off because they're damaged goods. They were laid off because the company had to reduce headcount for one reason or another. And these people are all good people. Not all of them. I mean, there are some people that maybe weren't very good and the company used it as an excuse to get rid of them. But honestly, most of the people that are out there that I'm meeting are really excellent candidates, and they need to be given a chance. Even though they don't have a job, you know, the best thing to do is interview them and make a decision after you talk to them and not make a snap decision.
Is there any way that you can make that gap look better? So they're not automatically disqualified just because of a 2 or 3 year gap?
Absolutely. So the first way to do it is volunteer. So get some volunteer experience, but some good volunteer experience. It shouldn't just be filing, doing filing or stuffing envelopes. Not like that. Really credible volunteer experience, preferably in your industry. That will fill in the gap. Also taking a class or teaching a class. And best of that would be maybe doing some consulting or part-time work, maybe going to the Chamber of Commerce and finding employers, business owners, and asking if you can do some part-time work for them. And you don't get paid a lot of money to do that in some cases, but it is better than having a gap.
And do you find that having all of these different jobs, different qualifications, like I feel that if you show too much of an entrepreneurial spirit, they're afraid to hire you because they think you'll just leave because you're not going to be manageable because you need to be the boss.
Yes, and that's true. But if you've got these little consulting things going on, nobody's going to care about that. It's just if you start an LLC, that's when they start to worry that you're going to leave them and go work on your LLC. So people like you and I that have been doing this on our own for a while, we're going to be a little tough to place. Companies are not going to be really thrilled to have me there. Even though I did 18 years of recruiting, they're going to think, oh, Abby's only going to do this with us for a couple of years, and then she's going to leave when the market gets better or something. So you and I are going to have a little trouble. But if we're just doing consulting and we don't have an LLC, we don't have a company, we're just doing a little here and there, I don't think companies should have as much of a problem.
And the last thing, as we talk about resumes, and then we'll move on to more important things, is that I've noticed another trend that I find a little upsetting is that if you're at a place too long, they kind of look at that as, why haven't you moved up? Why haven't you improved? Why haven't you tried to go somewhere else and move up the ladder? They see anybody at a company or in a position for too long is a bad thing.
Yeah, isn't that weird? It is kind of true, and I've worked for companies who felt that way. And I think what it is if you've worked for one company and you've only had done one job for 20 years, that's where they're going to be a little concerned. But you have to be able to talk about why you did that one job. Maybe you love that job, and maybe you excelled in that job, and you did really great things in that job, and you just love it, and that's why you want to continue doing it. And if you express it that way, most companies will be okay. It's just the people that didn't move up and wanted to move up, and those are the people that companies might worry about a little bit more. But the fact is, there's nothing you can do about it. If you stayed at a company for 20 years, you can't go back and reverse that. So you really have to work with what you can work with.
Now, if we've sent out the resume, we've got all this down, so we've convinced them through our resume that we should be at least brought in for an interview. So the interview process, how much has that changed? Are they still asking, what are you doing 5 years from now? Or the same stupid, what do you think is your worst quality? Which is always my worst quality is I care too much. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, they are still asking those questions, and you have to know how to answer them because they're still asking them. And those are usually HR questions. Those are not typically hiring manager questions. But you have to be able to get through HR in order to get a job, and HR is very, very involved these days. So you have to be able to get those answers, get them down pat. And they're all the same. And the only thing, what's funny is a lot of people say to me, people are asking behavioral questions, and that's all new. And that's not new at all. So there's like barely anything new in the interview process.
So when you go in, are there major mistakes that people are making when they're going to the interview process? Because, I've had interviews before, and they're usually pretty standard. And, it's mostly just to get to know the person and making sure they're not completely crazy and that things on their resume sound and match the person that is sitting in front of you. Like if they say they're a very social, good communicator, and you sit them in there and they're Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang, you're going to go, wait a second. But I find the interview, is there things that people are doing wrong? Are they trying to be too formal, or are they trying to be too relaxed? Or what are people doing that really screws up an interview?
I think part of it is that people are nervous during interviews, and so they just let their nerves take over, and so they just can't have a conversation. An interview is essentially a conversation. It's not one way. So you have to think of it as they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. And you have to interview them because you need to know if this is a good company, if this is going to be a good fit managerial-wise, if this is going to be the right culture. You have to know that before you go in, because if it's not going to work out anyway, and what's the point? So it should really be a two-way conversation, and I think the mistakes that people are making relate to passion. People don't know how to express why they're interested in the job in a way that companies really understand.
Yeah, I think the word passion is kind of overused quite a bit because, everybody's passionate about everything. I'm passionate about my CPA degree.
Right.
That's kind of an odd passion. You can say I enjoy numbers, or I'm good at math, and I like to solve problems. That's a good way of doing it. But is there a way to get away from the knee-jerk reaction and some of the jargon that they use, that the cliches of I'm very passionate, or this is what I love to do, versus, I'm going to be a good employee?
Well, let me give you an example of how this might work. So I've never worked for the airlines, but one of my hobbies these days is, it's called plane spotting. And what I do is I go to airports and I watch low-flying planes come in. And I just love to do it. And I've always thought to myself, I don't know why I didn't do any recruiting for an airline. But if I was sitting right in front of JetBlue today in an interview, I would say, I really want to work for you, JetBlue, because my hobby these days, what I really love to do in spare time, is I go to airports, I hang out, I watch the planes come in. So I always feel like I miss the airline industry. And I would love to work for you in particular because you have TVs on your airline, and I've been a big fan of your airline. Every time I fly, the first airline I look at is yours. So why wouldn't I want to work for you in particular?
Well, I think if you go in there saying you hang out at airports and watch planes land, you may end up on a special list.
I know, you're right. You're right.
It's like, okay. But I'm
willing to take that risk. But see, that's totally honest, right?
Yeah, I get the point. I
feel like it was honest? Because it's really true. Like, I've actually thought to myself, if driving around the country is not going to work out for me full-time forever, that's what I would do. I would go work for an airline and do recruiting, because that would be so fun to recruit flight attendants and pilots. It'd be like the greatest job in the world for me. Because it's my hobby. So, yeah.
Well, it totally makes sense. It's one of those things that's like, in this day and age, it's like, wow. Now, you sit there and you talk about how, this is something I've always wanted to do. You can't, it is a mutual conversation. You are interviewing them as well. But often, if the longer you're without a job, unfortunately, it seems like the more you're willing to settle for anything. So how can you get in a situation where you can feel comfortable enough to turn down, unless it's obvious, unless they go, you're going in there for a C-suite level job and they're offering you, $16 an hour. I can see where you'd say, no, thank you. But it's one of those situations where, you don't see it as a good fit, but you've been out of work for 18 months and, not taking a job is going to be more of a burden, but you don't want to take a job that you're not going to want to do.
I know, and I've never been in this situation, so it's very hard for me to tell somebody that's been out for 18 months to not take a job that's not going to work out. I just want you to put yourself 3 months ahead or 1 month ahead if it's that bad, and you're sitting in the HR department, and the person is saying to you, I'm really sorry, this isn't going to work out, and it's because you weren't a good fit, or you were in the wrong job, or you didn't know what you were doing because you didn't have the right skills, and you knew it. And I don't know that that's going to make you feel better. So it might be better to put your energy back into searching for the right job, even though something comes along. I cannot tell you how many people are making mistakes these days. And it's so hard because I hear about it, and they're making mistakes, and they really didn't have to. But I think it's because they just felt like they needed something. So if you feel like you need something, try to get something that's not related to your industry. So go work for the supermarket or go work for Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. Just do something to make a little bit of money so you can pay your bills, at least half your bills, so that you can take your time to find the right job in your industry.
Well, I know one thing that's changed since I've been looking for a job back in I guess it'd be the aughts. That's how sad that is. Is that, there was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. I didn't have to worry about them checking my profile. And they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
I mean, HR is not supposed to, but it happens. It's going to happen. If they Google your name, things are going to pop up, and you've got to be aware of that. So how much is that affecting the job market?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And there's really no reason that people aren't supposed to look at things like that. If you put it out there on a public site, there's no reason why someone can't go look for it. So HR people are definitely searching Google, they're searching LinkedIn, they're searching Facebook, they're searching Twitter. They're doing it mostly at the time of the offer or somewhere in the middle. They're not doing it right at the beginning. They don't have enough time because they have so many openings at once. They're probably doing it in the middle. Like after you've come in for one set of interviews, they're probably doing it there. I mean, some of them might do it at the beginning, but it's really becoming a major part of the hiring process.
And what is the biggest thing that is causing problems? Is it people putting wildly crazy statements? Is it pictures? Is it a combination of stuff? Is it just that they have ugly kids that they keep posting pictures over and over about? What's causing problems?
No, it's usually the statements that people are making. It's people complaining about things, whining about things. It's people that are cursing, people that are drinking, people that are smoking, putting pictures of that, putting pictures of yourself partying. Those are the pictures that you need to be very careful of. It's not if you have lots of kids and family members and friends. Those are okay. Just keep them don't look like you have a drink in your hand every time you have a picture.
And that's
it, yeah.
I was going to say, this is not a generational thing because a lot of people think it's just kids or 19-year-olds looking for jobs, but this is affecting adults, people in their 30s and 40s too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. And you'd be surprised. You would think that people that are adults might know better, but a lot of my friends will put things up there about what an awful week I had. And they're working, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm the boss and I read that, I don't want the whole world to know that you had an awful week. You know what I mean?
Or you have a stupid boss, or I hate my coworkers.
Right. I mean, that's something that people get fired over all the time. So you really have to be smart about the web. Every time you put something up, you have to think about, number one, do I want my whole family to know about it? And number two, do I want my boss to know about it? And number three, do I want my pastor to know about it?
Well, LinkedIn seems to be the place to be for social media if you're looking for a job. It's one of the reasons I don't use LinkedIn as much because I feel like it's mostly for recruiters and mostly for people looking for new jobs, even though there are opportunities for sales and things like that. Are there any tips that we can use for LinkedIn?
Well, it's very important that you set up your profile so that it's visible to everybody, right? So because if you set it up like that, it will be visible on Google, And you want yourself to be as visible as possible everywhere that you are, because you don't know where recruiters are going to be looking. Some recruiters just use Google, and they pull up LinkedIn profiles from Google, not from LinkedIn. So you want to make yourself very visible, and you definitely want to put a lot of words on your LinkedIn profile so that your words are searchable by recruiters.
Now, are you trying to get as many recommendations as possible, or how far back should your experience go? Is there a perfect type of profile that will fit that people can try to emulate?
Well, I would say that you should have 3 recommendations at least, and there's no perfect profile the same way that there's no perfect resume. The thing to do is to put as much on your LinkedIn profile as you have on your resume, and you can go as far back as your resume goes. But the idea is your LinkedIn profile kind of becomes your resume, and recruiters are definitely looking on there. They're also, by the way, looking for people that are employed. So if anyone's listening out there that's employed and wants a new job, recruiters are looking on there for employed people as well. But LinkedIn is also a huge site for people that own their own business to network and get more business. It's a whole other side of LinkedIn. People forget that that's there. But it really is a major part of LinkedIn. LinkedIn didn't do it because they wanted all the job seekers to be there. That's kind of what happened. But it's a whole other thing.
Well, before I let you go, is there one thing that people can do right now that is kind of obvious, but people overlook every time that'll help them at least get the search started?
Let's see. One thing that to get the search started. Probably the best thing that you can do when you're starting your search is to tell everybody that you know. Tell everybody that you know, and to try to come up with exactly what you're looking for. If you start talking in generalities, it's very hard for people to help you. Talk to everybody that you know and go to networking events all over the place and just get yourself out of the house. Don't spend a lot of time on the computer, on social media. Spend a little bit of time, but not a lot of time. That's the most important thing you can do. When you go to these job search networking groups where I'm speaking all over the country, you have speakers there. They're going to motivate you. They're going to make you feel better when you leave. You're going to meet people that are in the same boat that you're in, and it'll help. So just get out, go to the groups, meet some people, and all of a sudden, life will start to get a little easier for you.
So where can people find you and see when you're coming to their area and go to one of these seminars?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is if you are a job seeker, I have a teleseminar that I wanted to offer to you, and you can get it at meetabby.com. So it's meetaby.com. And if you sign up there, I'll send you a teleseminar, and it's going to be about interviewing. It's going to take you from the beginning of interviewing till the end when you're negotiating. It's a really great piece of work that I did a few years ago, and it's extremely valid. It hasn't changed one iota. So you can go there, and then if you want to invite me to one of your job search groups, or to an association meeting, or to your school, or to anywhere to speak about this topic or anything related, social media, or building a business, having visibility, that sort of thing, you can find me at abbyacrossamerica.com. So it's ABBYacrossamerica.com.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that your job is finding other people's jobs, because a lot of people don't have that altruistic job where they can actually help others by what they do so directly. I mean, a lot of people do great things, but this is so much that you'd be able to get someone a job and so they can help their life. So the fact that you do it, it's fantastic, and I certainly appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun.
That's the show. Thanks to Abby for pulling over and talking to me. I certainly appreciate it. We're on Twitter at RealityCheckPod, and while you're there, look up our guest list and follow past guests as well. We're on Facebook. Sign up for the newsletter at realitycheckpodcast.com, and feel free to email Craig at speakercraigprice.com with any comments, questions, or guest suggestions. See you next week.